Hey everybody, it's Chanowitz here and welcome to my channel. Today I have an interesting video prepared for you all. I'm going to be comparing the differences and similarities between international chess and Chinese chess. Let's get to it. Now here's something you might not know about me. I'm an avid chess player. I'm constantly, studying up on books, online, keeping up with the latest players in the tournaments. It's a passion of mine. And only recently have I learned to play Chinese chess. So I thought it'd be interesting to draw the similarities in the pieces and in the objective of the game and the different rules. So let's jump right into it. So first off, I'm gonna run through the basics of international chess just in case you're not aware. And the chessboard itself is an 8x8 in size. There's 64 squares, and vertically you count 1 to 8. And horizontally, you're counting A to H. I'm gonna go over the proper placement of the pieces. So on the far left, you start with the rook, then the knight, bishop, queen, king, bishop, knight, and rook. All right, so let's start with the measly pawn. You start off with 8 pawns, as you can see, black and white. And on its first move, it can either move 1 or 2 squares. Normally 2 squares, and then from then on it moves 1 square at a time, and they eat diagonally. So that's basically everything you need to know about the pawns. Alright, and now we move on to the knight. This is probably the trickiest piece on the board, and they move in a particular L shape. It takes some getting used to. Let me just depict their march on the board, as you can see. So it helps just to play around a bit with the knights, and you can see they just zigzag all over on the board. Okay, and next we move on to the bishop. Now this is one of my favorite pieces. This is a very powerful piece. Let me show you how it moves. And it moves on the diagonals of its color. For example, this is the light squared bishop, so it can move as many squares as it wants to along its diagonal. Alright, and here we have the rook. Now this piece is the second most powerful after the queen. It moves horizontally and vertically as many squares as it pleases. Just like this. Alright, and lo and behold, here is the queen. This is the most powerful piece. A good way to remember its function is that it basically moves like a bishop and a rook combined. So it has the power of moving horizontally and vertically as many squares, and diagonally. Alright, and now we have the king. So the king itself is it's not such a powerful piece. It can move 1 square in any direction. And it's not a very powerful piece, but obviously it is the most important. Alright, and here we have Chinese chess, or better known as Xiangqi. Differences are that the pieces are situated actually at points. They're not occupying squares, but instead they're on intersections of points. That's the first difference. The second one is that the board is a 10 by 9. So there are 90 possible spots for your pieces, and there's a very particular characteristic, which is in the middle of the board there's this river area which no piece can be placed on, but they need to cross over in order to reach the enemy general in this case. Okay, so now I'm gonna help you set up the pieces. So we start off with the che on the ends, or basically the chariot, the rooks on the ends. Then we come with the ma, the horses or the knights. Then we come to the xiang, basically the bishops or the elephants. Then we have the shi, both on each side of the general, which they're basically known as the advisors. And here we have the shuai, which is the general. So that's how you set up the back rank. So basically on these 2 dots, we place the pao, or the cannons. And then on the front lines, we place the bing, or the zhu if you're black. We place them on the front lines, just as so. Okay, so let's start off with basically the pawns. Here we have the bing and the zhu. basically they're both pawns, but red and black have they have different names and different characters, but they're essentially the same piece. So basically from the start they can move 1 point forward, as you can see, and they capture vertically. For example, if I move my soldier up here, then black is going to capture me. And once they cross the river, for example, once they cross the river, they can move laterally and vertically. So once they cross, they kind of increase in range of movement. Okay, and now we move on to my favorite piece, the Pao. And this is basically the cannon. So the trick with this piece is that it needs to jump over either a friendly piece or an enemy piece in order to consume another piece. So one line of play can proceed like this. And as you can see, the cannon now has one of its soldiers in front of him, so it's threatening to capture this guy. Now this piece here is the che, or the chariot, or the rook basically. And it moves vertically and horizontally as many points as it wants to. So for example, if it were located here, it can move vertically as much as it pleases, horizontally, and it captures any piece in its way. It's a pretty powerful piece. And now here that brings us to the Ma, and basically this is a horse or a knight, and it moves in a very similar way. It has that same L-shaped movement. As you can see, it's going to move here, and if the soldier were to move up, then the knight can occupy over here. So it has that similar L-shaped movement to the international here. Now that brings us to the Xiang, and this is basically called either an elephant or the bishop, and it moves in the same way. It moves diagonally. First square is it can move 2 dots diagonally in either direction. And now that brings us to the Shi, or basically the advisors. And these guys are right here nestled with the general. And this is an interesting piece because do you see this square grid right here? They cannot leave. This is called the palace, and these advisors are basically obligated to stay within the palace and defend the king, and they move diagonally 1 square at a time. That brings us to the Shuai, or the general basically, and both colors have a different name and character for their general. So for red it's Shuai in this case, and for black it's Jiang. I think the black's character is a little more elegant. Take a look at that. And basically the general also cannot leave the palace, as you can see, this square grid, and the general basically moves 1 square either vertically or horizontally at a time. Alright everyone, that was a brief comparison between international chess and Chinese chess. I hope that sparked your interest in either variety of chess. Now this is a real brief comparison. Let me know if you want a more detailed look. I'll take a look at openings and different strategies and stuff. Alright, thanks for watching. That's it for this time. I'll see you later.